Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White. This is our Friday night edition. I guess everybody has something to do. Adolph may join us. He may not. Allan is supposed to be joining us. He had something else to do, but he said he will be joining us in a few minutes. But who we have on deck that's always ready to have a very spirited conversation is one of my favorite police officers, Jim Nardone. Good evening, Dwayla.
Good Friday evening.
Good Friday evening.
Retired police officer. Don't forget that part. That's the best part.
Retired police officer. And of course, you guys have me. If you are watching Detroit in Black and White, we want you to hit that like button, like, and subscribe. Listen, we're trying to get our viewership up, right? We're trying to get our subscribers up so that we can do some other things, and we can't do it without you. So tell your friends about Detroit in Black and White. Like, subscribe. You can catch us on all social media platforms, and you can watch older episodes on our website, DetroitInBlackandWhite.com. So, Jim, I guess, hey, Marlon, good to see you. Good to see you. I guess, Jim, we're going to have a guest to come on this evening, right? But she's not here yet, right?
She's going to come on at 8:45, Debbie Kolacki. We've had her before.
Right. We've had her before, and when she came, we had a lot of engagement, so I can't wait to have her. So before she comes on the show, what is it that you want to talk about?
I have a whole bunch of notes today because first off, I wanted to talk about something that's kind of outrageous, if we can have kind of an outrage tonight.
Okay.
So President Trump, it's just outrageous. You don't have to agree, disagree. I just think it's outrageous. Michelle Fiore is known as Lady Trump. She was a member of the Las Vegas City Council. So she raised money for a statue. I'm not a big statue person, but a police officer was killed in 2014 in Las Vegas, I guess in the line of duty. And she was convicted of spending the money on plastic surgery, a wedding, and rent for her daughter, up to $70,000. I guess I don't know exactly how much she spent. She was facing 140 years in prison. But the president of the United States, a big fan of law enforcement, decided to pardon Lady Trump in Las Vegas. So she has been convicted and was awaiting sentencing, and she is now free.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to read that story, but wait a minute. I want to make sure we got this right. She had fundraisers. She raised some money. This is for a fallen officer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Officer that was killed in duty. And she used that money to go and have cosmetic surgery.
That's what I read. That's what the press is reporting. She was just on the city council, but she was a huge Trump supporter.
That is outrageous. And what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that if you flatter this guy, if you are a supporter of his, you can't tell him, I'm a fan of effective leadership needs to have people who can tell them when they're doing something wrong. But he doesn't want that. You have to continuously say, if you're saying you're attaboy, you're the greatest, then guess what? You can get anything that you want. I agree with you. That is outrageous. And I cannot imagine how the fallen officer's family feels.
Her name is Michelle Fiore, Fiore. And I read it this evening. I was kind of shocked.
Wow.
You can't be a fan of law enforcement, and then when a woman is convicted, I mean, what's more low down than taking charity money from anybody? And she was convicted. She was facing 140 years from what I read, and Donald Trump, he pardoned her in the midst of her.
This is the lady. She's blonde.
Yeah, she's Lady Trump, apparently.
Yes, I see her. She's okay. Yeah, absolutely. She's born in 1970. She is a committee woman for the Nevada Republican Party and Justice for the Peace of Pahrump and Nye County. She was formerly a member of the Nevada Assembly and the Las Vegas City Council. Wow.
So much for the rule of law and so much for law enforcement.
Yeah, she's a strong supporter of gun rights. Her 2015 Christmas card showed her family holding their guns. She sponsored Assembly Bill 148 to allow concealed firearms on the campuses of colleges and grade schools and in daycare facilities. In an interview with the New York Times, she said, if these young, hot little girls on campus have a firearm, I wonder how many men will want to assault them. The sexual assaults that are occurring will go down once these sexual predators get a bullet in their head. Same-sex marriage and medical marijuana. She was the only Republican to vote to lift the ban on same-sex marriage and to legalize medical marijuana. Okay. Wow. Very, very, very interesting person. That is interesting. So, hey, Alan, how are you this?
Hey, good.
Do you have an outrage? Because I'm going to continue something I talked about the other night. Do you have an outrage?
I don't know if you guys have talked about the Will Smith, the sentencing, which I thought he'd probably get at least 15 years. I sort of feel like, I mean, it's some of it's based on a big formula. I mean, one of it's how much money is involved, whether he's regretting, whether how much he cooperates, all that kind of stuff, and some mitigating in terms of the person he is, whatever. But I sort of feel like it's 15 years is more than enough. I mean, when you start piling, it's like Kwame, when Kwame got 28, 15 years would have been more than enough for him as well. But I thought it was interesting, and now it's escaping me. What's his name? Who was the head of the board for the Conservancy? Worked for Dan Gilbert and all that. He went to court and told the judge give him the maximum and blah blah blah. But as we've talked about and you guys have talked about, I mean, it doesn't make any excuse for what Will Smith did. What he did was totally egregious. But the people on the board should have been at least minimum fired or resigned. I mean, the idea, okay, whether they should have known or not, it doesn't matter. The optics are you were head of this board, and during that time we had one of the biggest scandals in the history of the city. You shouldn't be able to stay as head of the organization at that point. So
he got 19 years, right?
About 19 years.
19 years, not 15, 19 years. Queen B said, do you know what did he spend the money on? Alan, you talked about this a few weeks ago. You want to talk about some of the things that he spent the money on?
He chartered a yacht for a Caribbean cruise. He had jets, that he chartered jets. He had front row seats to the Piston games. I think he spent $500,000 on that. He gave his girlfriend, I can't remember, it was $3.4 or $3.7 million. He bought her or leased a fancy car.
Maserati.
A Maserati. He invested in properties. I mean, in the end, it's like, there'd be some sympathy if he said, oh, my mother had cancer. The costs were outrageous. We were trying to help. You have some sympathy, but it's just pure. I mean, in his sentencing memorandum that his attorneys filed, they said that he has a problem with alcohol. That he needs to have alcohol treatment or whatever. But it's not much of a mitigating circumstance. A lot of people drink, but so he spent it on stuff that really, he lived the life of a billionaire. I mean, billionaires don't even live, that kind of life. He did everything. He traveled. He had properties everywhere. He lived a life that we could only dream of living. I have no desire to live that level that he lived, but some people do.
I'm going to step in a little bit, then I'm going to go back to something I talked about the other day. Well, you're talking about a nonprofit. Well, some people will say, and I'm not saying this, but some people will say when you talk about a 501c, a lot of these mega churches, and you have some of these ministers, I'm not saying all of them, but they living like millionaires. Some of them I can name. What's her name? Joyce Myers, Dr. Joyce Myers. You have what's the other lady's name? Paula White. I mean, it's a nonprofit. It is a nonprofit, right? And you're supposed to be doing good in the community. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, the Conservancy. I mean, it was also you had probably 40 board members who were in name only. You know, it was a feel good. It's a feel good organization. They do nice stuff. They beautify the riverfront. They do some nice things. And all these big foundations were giving them money, tons of money, and everybody was feeling good about it until, you know, you have a scandal where they feel like fools for providing that kind of money, and you know, it's.
Does he think he's a pastor of a church? What's going on here?
No, right, right. I'm just saying, but I just think that when you have nonprofits, I guess the point that I wanted, she didn't steal money. The point that I'm trying to make is that when you have nonprofits and you don't have real oversight, you're open to things like this happening. Like $40 million, that is a whole lot of money. That is a whole lot of money. And even with the things that you said he spent it on, that doesn't amount up to $40 million. So I'm like, what else did he do? What else did he do? Was he taking care of families? Where else did the money
He had investments. He had businesses. He had properties. He had businesses. I mean, it's not cheap to charter a yacht in the Caribbean. It's not cheap to charter. I mean, when you fly, if you or I were to get a jet just for a night trip to Vegas or something, that's going to be $30,000-$40,000. I mean, that money goes. He bought you know, Gucci stuff. I think it was like $500,000, and he was buying shit he really didn't need.
And he didn't even understand, like so many of us, you buy Louis Vuitton and Gucci, and they make it all in China for.
Thanks to everybody for their comments. Thanks, Marlon. Yes, Marlon is a Detroiter through and through. He can't hide it. It was a joke. I was kidding about the pastor. Let's say, Vanessa, can we say hi to all our friends? Do you want to cover that?
I'm sorry, what now?
Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, Duela, good evening. Marlon. Marlon want to talk about Letitia. Train 05 said good evening. Kenneth Powell. Awesome. Thank you, Kenneth. He's always telling people to like, share, and subscribe. Edward Altman, he said good evening. Letitia Jones. Queen B said, hey y'all. Landon Dye said good evening. He wants to know, Marlon wants to know whether Letitia James is guilty or not. We're gonna go back to that in a minute. Felicia Dean, good evening. He said he believes she will run for the next governor. I don't know who he's talking about. Who's gonna run for the next governor?
He's talking about the lady from Las Vegas.
Lady, right? Probably so. You laughing, but you probably so.
I'm just disappointed that Allan wasn't here for hear me beat up on a Trump decision.
Right.
Wow.
Queen B says,
watch the reruns.
Right. Queen B says when you're talking about the lady in Vegas, the former councilwoman who raised money for a fallen officer, Allan, and she took the money and instead used it for cosmetic surgery and the like. Right. She was convicted. She was supposed to go to prison. The president of the United States let her off. Queen B points out something that's very true, that his family could sue civilly. Of course, somebody points out that Mary Sheffield was on the board of the Riverfront Conservancy. Score B13 says Joyce Myers didn't steal any money. I didn't say that she stole any money. I was just trying to make a point that when you have a 501c, these nonprofits, you know, people live very well off of the money. Deborah Harris said, hi, y'all. And Marla said, did he lock donors in to get the 40 million?
I think we're going to see with Mary Sheffield, I think she's going to have to at least, I don't know that it'll be a big issue in the campaign, but she needs to address the fact that she sat on the board. And, you know, what's your excuse for, I'm sure her excuse is that she really didn't have any idea how the thing was being operated, like a lot of the dozens of other board members there. But still, you're running for mayor now, and you're going to be even overseeing more money than that, and how you're going to guarantee the people that money is going to go to the right places.
Right. So I just want to go back to one thing, because our guest is waiting. She's waiting on deck, so we're going to have her come in. But I just want to, and I'm not saying that I told you so, but I am saying the other day, and I think I need to explain this. When I brought up Shannon Sharp, one of our co-hosts, as a man, I felt like, he was like, well, she was legal. They were consenting adults. And of course, my stance was, listen, she was 19 years old. And if it was your daughter, if it was your niece, if it was your sister, you should have a problem with a 56-year-old man dealing with them. But let me say this. I say the same holds true for a grown woman. A few years ago, there was a big story about Jada Pinkett Smith. She was dealing with a young man who was an artist. He has some mental health issues. He was much, much younger than she was. And I said the same thing about her. You are a predator. Shannon Sharp is a predator. Now we hear all these other stories coming out about him. And I felt that the other day when we talked about him, other women saying things that he's done to them. And I know sometimes it could be a snowball effect, but listen, where there's smoke, there's fire. So the point that I'm trying to make is this. For me, the same thing holds true for young men that are taken advantage of. When you have a 30 or 40-year difference and you are rich and you are powerful and you're exerting, as far as I'm concerned, undue influence and authority and power over these people, you have a problem. No better for you. So that's my speech for. Yeah, go ahead, Allan.
I just want to clarify. I mean, he's been on ESPN for a long time, and apparently, I don't watch ESPN a lot in terms of, unless there's a sporting event, but he's supposed to be very good. But she was making allegations. Did she file a lawsuit, anonymous, with Jane Doe, accusing him of sexual assault and all that? He put her out there. And then there's a recording out there saying, I'm going to choke you and you're not going to be able to do a thing about it. I think he was about to sign a $100 million contract for multi-year.
He was supposed to sign $100 million contract.
So he's screwed now. I mean, I don't know how they deal with. I don't know how Disney, ESPN, how they're going to deal with that. But I have a feeling they're not going to sign that contract.
I got a feeling that they're not going to sign that contract. And you know what was offensive to me? You got on television and you said that this is basically, you guys are picking on me just like you picked on Jay-Z. I'm a black man and you guys are trying to, contribute to my downfall, whatever, all of that stuff. And I have been known to say that race does play an issue in most things. But in this case, dude, you need to take responsibility for your actions. You need to take responsibility for your actions. How dare you sit here and compare yourself to somebody else when you said that this was consent. Jay-Z's allegation was supposedly a 13-year-old. You said that she consented. You also said you had a lawyer who came out and said, listen, we offered $10 million, and instead of, coming back with a counter offer, they came back with a lawsuit. And then it comes out today that there was another woman who accused him of doing something at Fox in a closet. And they try to preface it as, a little horseplay, but this woman got paid off. And I will submit to you that where there's smoke, there's fire. And I don't care if it's Shannon Sharp or if it's Vanessa Moss. You shouldn't be doing it. And I don't care how grown you could say she is. At 19, you can't buy cigarettes and you can't buy alcohol. So if she's getting high and she was smoking, dude, you gave it to her.
Well, you see right now, Harvey Weinstein, I think he's on retrial again. I can't remember. I think it's in New York or I can't remember if it's in LA or New York. I think it's in New York where he's having a retrial. There was a powerful person in Hollywood, and he's been brought down for all these allegations. So,
well, I think, but you know what? They pick on the men, But you know what? You got to hold these women who do that kind of stuff as well. I don't care what your name is. I don't care who you married to. If you're doing, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And something to me is really wrong with you if you get excited about somebody that's significantly younger than you. Now, listen, I think I'm a nice looking woman. I've had younger men approach me and I look at them and say, are you kidding me? You're my son's age. What are we going to talk about? What could we possibly talk about? And not only that, I'm not a sugar mama. I ain't paying for jack. Okay. I'm not paying for nothing. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I introduce are we ready?
Yes. So we could pivot and go to our next guest.
Hello, Debbie.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
We can.
I want to thank all of you for allowing me to come on here, especially Jim, who always lets me come on and support the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which is a very important cause for me and for many people. We have a huge walk tomorrow. It's going to be at the Troy Community Center. Starts at 8:30. We're walking for pancreatic cancer. You know that it's probably one of the deadliest cancers around. There's only a 13% survival rate. And the incident keeps going up. This year, there's over 67,000 that have been diagnosed, and 51,000 of those will be dead this year.
Debbie, can you tell our viewers how you got what your story is?
Well, my husband he was very healthy. Jim knows, he worked out. He never took any medicine. He started having stomach aches. Of course, they said it was gallbladder, then kidneys, stones. And then we finally found out that it was pancreatic cancer, and he was already at stage 4. That's the problem. Most people are diagnosed at stage 4 because we don't have an early detection test.
How long ago was that?
Ask you.
It's very, very difficult.
When was that diagnosed?
He lived for 3 years and he's been gone for 6 years. We were lucky that he lived 3 years because he was stage 4. You know, I have met people that have, their loved ones were diagnosed and 3 weeks later they've died, or, 6 months later they've died. It's very tough. And with the funding being cut now, we need to even fundraise even more. We need to, and PanCan is a great organization because they have a patient service that you can call and they will help you find the right doctor, clinical trials, they'll tell you where they are. They also help advocacy. I've been to Washington, D.C. and advocated with our representatives and senators for money. And they're really trying to, really give out some grants for research.
Debbie, we have a viewer who asked the question, Queen B. She says, is it true 2 of the causes of pancreatic cancer is alcohol consumption and kidney disease?
Well, I haven't ever heard of kidney disease. And as far as alcohol, that was the first question they asked my husband. So okay. Do you drink a lot? And he said, no, I have my occasional beer on a weekend. They feel that it's also, so yes, it can happen, but look at Ed, he didn't drink. And a lot of people that I know haven't drank. They do say that they're looking at diabetics to see for early intervention testing. Because of the pancreas. Mm-hmm. That's the hard part, how to diagnose.
Is there anything on the horizon in terms of making early intervention available, or is there some scientific things going on?
You know what? There's a lot of research going on right now. I think a lot of the researchers are researching, trying to get that early intervention. That's I think is one of the most important component that we need to find.
So when your husband was diagnosed, you said from the time that he was diagnosed until the time that he made his transition, because I don't like to use the D word.
Right.
How was his quality of life for those 3 years? Because I'm sure it had to be difficult. I mean, all of us know that one day we're going to leave, but to know that you had this disease and that it could happen any moment. How was his quality of life?
You know, Ed had a real good attitude. He said day by day. They didn't give him a long time to live. They basically said maybe 6 months, but he did live 3 years. And I do feel that he had good quality for about 2.5 years. The last 3 months, 4 months, it was tough. He was losing weight. It was moving into his stomach, the cancer to the brain. But we were fortunate enough. We were very fortunate, you know.
Did he get any treatment at all or
Oh,
no?
yeah, he got chemo. He had chemo for those 3 years. Mm-hmm.
The entire 3 years?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
do you think the chemo made any difference at all?
Well, we used to get chemo vacations.
I'm sorry. Okay, could you repeat that, Debbie?
If he was doing really well, they would say, you can have a chemo vacation for 6 weeks.
Okay.
So, you know, we would go do something.
Okay.
I
Okay.
want to tell my Debbie story. Can I tell my Debbie
Yes,
story?
go ahead and tell your Debbie story.
I'll try and be really brief. So in 2011, this is a good story about Jim and Debbie. In 2011, I was running a marathon, and Debbie was competing in the half marathon. I wasn't competing, I was just running. And we happened to meet each other in the midst of 50,000 people at the Detroit Marathon, found out we lived in the same neighborhood, got to be friends with Debbie and her husband. And Debbie walks the walk and talks the talk, right? She lost her husband. He's been gone 6 years.
Yeah.
She's so involved. 52,000 people in the U.S. die yearly. It's about 50, from what I see, about 50% men, 50% women. And
right.
Like the 5-year survival rate is 13%. So I just want to say thank you to the people. We've all been affected, right? And tomorrow's Purple Day. So I have my purple stride shirt on tonight, my purple. So if you want to do anything at all, wear purple tomorrow.
That's right.
And if you want to give a little, if you feel like it, if you lost somebody to pancreatic cancer, if you have the urge, please consider it. That's really it. Go ahead, Ann.
Yes, Debbie. There's some famous people who have died from pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Ginsburg, Aretha Franklin, Patrick Swayze, Alex Trebek. Has that helped the movement?
It has. It has. Yes, it really has. They have supported PanCan. I know in Los Angeles, Alex Trebek was actually at the Purple Stride Walk when he was still living. So yes, they had it. I hate to say that it was good that they got it, but because of their name, it also made it become more aware.
Right.
So I do have to ask you, I want to back up with your story about your husband. You said that initially when he went to the doctor, they thought it was one thing and then they thought it was something else. Is that common with pancreatic cancer?
It's tough. It's tough to diagnose. It's very tough.
Okay.
And why is that? Why is it so tough?
Well, you go in there and you say you have a stomach ache or a lower back ache. So, you know, they might do some testing. I mean, if that was me, I would say, look, I want a complete CAT scan, So it's just very hard for them to diagnose. I think now, making people more aware of it, I feel you have to be your own advocate anyways when you go into the doctor.
Right.
What is it? Is it an MRI or a CAT scan or
he had to get, I think he had an MRI and a CAT scan. Okay. Some people get PET scans. I think it's really up to what your doctor is. I should probably tell you the story. We went to real quick, I'll tell you. They told me he had gallbladder, so we got his gallbladder out. And then he kept saying, Debbie, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. We went back to the surgeon. He said, oh, you're just old. You're okay. It's just going to take you longer. We drove up north and he woke me up in the middle of the night and he said, look, this isn't normal. This isn't from the surgery. Mm-hmm. We went to a little hospital in Petoskey and the ER doctor, we told him the whole story. He came back. He said, I'm going to do this CAT scan. And he came back and he said, you need to go home ASAP. You have a huge tumor on your pancreas. And we went back to thank him. And I said, how did you know when we
Right.
went to, and he said, because my wife is an oncologist and it was too familiar with her stories.
Wow.
I have a friend who worked at the Wall Street Journal. He was an investigative reporter in Washington. He died of pancreatic cancer. By the time they diagnosed it, he did chemo, but he died 4 months later.
Yeah.
Is that pretty common?
Yes.
In
Yes.
stage 4?
Yes. Yes. I know people that were diagnosed and 3 weeks later they have passed away.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it takes them out pretty quickly once they're
Mhm.
diagnosed because it's so far gone by the time
Correct.
it's detected.
Correct.
So do you recommend that when you go, if you go to the doctor, you have a tummy ache, that you tell them to do a full CAT scan?
Well, what I would recommend is say, hey, can we look at everything? You know, the stomach, the pancreas, you know, whatever test they want to do. But I mean, I would just be more of an advocate and say, I want you to look further into why I'm having these symptoms.
Right.
So that's your message, Debbie. You'd like
Be
talk
your
to all
own
the men out
advocate.
there that are, and the women that love them out there watching the show tonight. Talk to them and tell them what steps they might take. If what may give them some suspicion that they have
Right.
a disease like
If
pancreatic
you just don't feel good and they can't find, you know, I always say you're your own advocate. You know your body, and just keep fighting if you have a symptom till you get to the answer.
Find a new doctor if the other doctor's not looking.
Right, absolutely, because that's what it sounds like. I mean, you know, I know they call it the practice of medicine. It's not called the perfect. It's not called
Right.
perfect, and I always say it's called practice. But in your husband case, thank God you were able to go somewhere else, and this person was informed. I just think that the doctors need to be more informed.
Right.
If someone comes in there and say, "Hey, I have a stomach ache," or backache, I would think that it would be automatic that you would do a full CAT scan. I would think.
Well, I do have to say we're very fortunate in Michigan because we do have 2 national cancer centers, U of M and Carmanos, and also Henry Ford is on the cutting edge with pancreatic cancer. So we are very fortunate in this state.
In terms
there's
of
no preventative treatment. You can't go in and say, hey, I should be checked out for a colonoscopy, as Deborah saying, maybe time to get a colonoscopy. There's nothing. I think it's Patrick Swayze also passed from, was he at pancreatic cancer?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
And there's no test that you go get your blood test once a year. You get, you know, your liver enzymes, you do all this, but there's no test.
And a lot of times people will wait, they become jaundiced. That's another big sign.
Mm-hmm.
You become jaundiced and you go to the doctor and it's too late. You're stage 4 already.
I think about melanoma. That's another disease
Yes.
that people don't find out until I have a friend that just passed. He found out 4 weeks ago and he's gone. Right. There's no test. You just keep going to the dermatologist if you can, but there is no way to detect pancreatic cancer. Is what you're saying.
So Debbie, the money that
let me ask a quick question. Just in terms of,
hold on, Allan, hold on.
Yeah.
Debbie, the money that you guys raise, is it money used for people who may not have insurance? Is it raised for research? What is the money?
It's raised to have PanCan helps us with patient services. We provide, information. It goes to scientific research. It goes to government advocacy. It's a whole wide range. It's a great organization. They can help you with nutrition. You can call them. They can look up clinical trials. It's a great organization.
Okay, go ahead, Allan.
I was going to ask, it's more common among men, but it's still pretty common among women as well.
Oh, yes, sure. Yes. And now, today I found out that a 32-year-old just was diagnosed with it.
So roughly 50% are women, 50% are men, or just slightly a little more.
Yeah, I don't know the statistics exactly about men and women, but
it's a drop more for men, but not that much.
Yeah, it might be around 60,000 people a year. I think it was 2023 was the last year, and I think around 60,000 people passed. They were saying 52, now they're saying maybe 62,000.
Right. But I just want to thank you very much for letting me come on. And I do listen to your podcast weekly.
Oh,
So
great.
tomorrow is the event. Tell us about the event.
Yes, tomorrow is the event. It starts at 8:30. It's at Troy Community Center. You are more than welcome to come on down. You can register then. You can donate. We're hoping for great weather. So there's probably going to be about 1,100 walkers tomorrow.
And it used to be in Detroit, and you were kicked
Right.
out.
Well, we had to leave Detroit last year because of the draft.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're thinking about coming back? Is that my understanding?
I'm not sure. I don't know what's going to happen.
So even if you don't come, even if you don't, if you are inclined or you're not inclined, please wear purple tomorrow. How's
Yes,
that?
always wear purple, especially even in November on World Pancreatic Cancer Day.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Debbie. And of course, you are always welcome to come back to talk about PanCan. Our viewers said that this is really good information. They really appreciate you for coming on. Landon Dye said, thank you for coming on, Debbie. Many people should hear this. Deborah Harris says she's sorry for the loss of your husband. So people are really touched by the story that you've given, but we like the fact that you've given us that kind of information because that's information that a lot of us didn't know.
Right.
And thanks, Queen B. Queen B said, thanks for telling your story.
Okay. Thank you. Now I just hit the leave button, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good luck tomorrow, and thanks for coming on,
Yeah.
and thanks for watching the show.
Okay. Thanks.
Oh, that was a good interview. Remember when she came on last year and she talked, and we had a lot of people asking questions. So I think that is really great. So I don't have an outrage. I am just going to give an update. A few weeks ago, if you guys remember, I did an outrage. Alan, I don't know if you remember, I did an outrage about this company that's on the east side, concrete company, and I talked about how people, how the mayor of the city of Detroit illegally let them open up this concrete. I don't know what you call it, facility. That's what I would call it. And once people said something about it, he went backdoored it and got the right paperwork. But I went to a meeting today with some seasoned folks on the east side, and actually that subject came up. So it was two things. One, we had people there that was familiar with Detroit in black and white. And two, they talked about that. What was interesting is that Councilman Benson, who is running for office again for re-election, he was there. And one of the constituents talked about how she felt like he wasn't there. And he of course said that's not true. He talked about it, what he did. And I stood up and said, listen, I'm not his advocate, but he's the only city council person that actually stood up for the people in that area, and that he's actually doing some things. The point that I'm trying to make is this: when we're coming upon election season, you guys just don't look at the glossy
pamphlets, brochures,
and advertisement and things like that. Look at what people have done. If you have somebody, and I'm not naming anybody, but if you have somebody who's backdooring, doing things that's illegal, and you're a lawyer yourself, you need to ask your question: do you really want this person to be your leader? I'm not advocating one way or the other, but those are the hard questions that you need to ask, and you need to be able to ask those people those questions. The other day we was just on the show, and Alan, you wasn't here. There's going to be a forum tomorrow with some of the candidates for mayor. I think it's 6 of them, and there's an invitation, and you have to scan this invitation, and then they're going to send you an email as to whether or not you can come. Now, you want to be, and I'm not blaming the candidates, because the candidates, these people just putting on the forum, they make the rules. But we need to start asking these candidates, all of them, whether or not you're running for the mayor of the city of Detroit or you're running for city council. We really need to ask these people the hard questions and really need to look at them. And like I said, stop looking at the glossy stuff. Look at the stuff that really, really matters, especially in your neighborhood. That's what I want to say.
Oh, is that going to be live streamed, or? Well,
it says that you can attend virtually, but you have to Did you get the text? Did you get a text, a copy of it, Alan?
I got a press release.
Okay, so we got so that's what it looks like. I don't know if you see it, but that's what it looks like. So it says limited seating. What a virtual option is available. You scan the QR code for the virtual registration. Now, Eric actually registered, but as of Thursday morning, he still had not received an email as to where he's going or anything like that. I was supposed to do it, but I got busy doing other things. And I know that I'm not going to go. I'm not going to be able to sit Saturday to watch this thing virtually. But I would think that as a candidate, that's something that, to me, you should be asking, why are we doing it like this? Everybody deserves to hear whatever it is that we have to say.
It should be live streamed at minimum.
Absolutely.
We had a really spirited discussion, Alan. You weren't present for it a few days ago. And I'm going to ask you, because as a journalist, I suggested that they want fewer people, and you have to register and you have to be recommended. It just seems unreasonable. The bar seems a little too high to be able to attend this event, and I'm wondering what your thoughts might be on that.
Well, they're saying, I don't know, the venue is, I can't remember. I mean, you want, it's one thing to have limited seating. It's another thing to have limited, like where you have to sign up for virtual. I mean, nowadays, I mean, everything. I mean, we're live streaming now.
Right.
It's not that difficult. The technology is so fundamental right now. So I think you want to open it up. I mean, you want to get your views out. You want as many people as possible to see it. So it is a little puzzling if they're trying to limit it and make it exclusive, like, and I think the Michigan Chronicle is involved in it. Is that they're?
I don't know. Put it back up, Lady T. I don't know. Delegates, the African American something. It's the Lord, African American leadership. I can't read that. Now I'm all the way up in the screen. I can't read the other. I could look it up on my phone, but it's 3 organizations. I don't see Michigan Chronicle on there.
Well, I have a press release, and it says the event is the first time all the major candidates running for mayor will be together. Jeremy Allen, executive editor for the Michigan Chronicle, will represent the press asking questions. The city's first mayoral forum to replace outgoing Mike Duggan will be held at Riverside Marina, 11,000 Freud Street on Detroit's east side. It'll be the first time all the major candidates, blah, blah, blah. Doors open at 11:30 a.m. Program starts with a meet and greet with precinct delegates at 11:45 a.m. Candidate forum starts at 12:30 p.m. I'm not sure what.
Well, think about that, Alan. I'm sorry. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt, but think about that. Ms. Sheila puts it correct when she says excuses for donors and delegates. So in other words, they're even restricting which press they're allowing. And I know that happens, but
we're actually going to have one of the videographers who had been working full time for Deadline Detroit. He reached out to me that he wanted to cover it for Deadline. So they are giving press credentials, but still, I don't get, like we say, we're doing this virtual, and we know how simple it is to do live streaming, and I don't know why they're not doing it.
Yeah, they're restricting access to the people.
Yeah, and you know what I'm saying, and we've said this the other day. Listen, it's limited seating. Okay, fine. Virtual. Okay, fine. But you got to register. I'm sorry, that is suspect. And some of our viewers are saying that they blame the candidates because they could refuse to participate. But here's the deal, though. You can have a candidates forum and be selective as to who can come, but you want everybody to vote for you to become the mayor, and you want everybody to give you donations. That to me does not make any kind of sense at all. You, to me, will want to hear what the people have to ask you, I would think. And I noticed, and I don't know if it's changed, Alan, but you noticed the Reverend Pastor Kinlock wasn't on that, is not on that, and I don't know if it's changed, but he's not, he wasn't one of the people that had confirmed that he was going to be at that forum, which I think is interesting. And I'm not saying he's thumbing the nose, but that is somebody that is really for the people and of the people. And I don't know if he had a problem with it or not, but that to me is very, very, very telling. And people really, now the constituents, when we want to talk about, we've talked about so many things. We talked about poverty. We talked about the cost of the rising cost of housing. We've talked about education. We need to talk about this too. Why is it, if you're saying that you for the people, you want the people to trust you, why is it only a select few available to see what you're hear what you're talking about? Because like you said, you can do it virtually and everybody should be able to come in and do the comments. And I would think if I'm running, I want to hear what you have to ask. Even if I can't answer it, at least somebody on my team could write it down if that's something that we can address the next time that we're out.
Right. I mean, it's a easy way to help educate the voters. I mean, I understand. I mean, if I were a candidate, you try to get as much free publicity, get your name out there. I would think you'd want to be on this forum, but there are only 6 candidates right now on there. But we never get enough. We never learn enough about the candidates. The media does a pretty limited job of getting the word out, and it's very canned. So the debates are an opportunity. I know Charlie LaDuff is holding a debate next month over at Wayne Community College. His podcast is sponsoring something. So I mean, the more we see, the better off we are to make a determination who really knows their stuff. I mean, we have had candidates on Detroit in Black and White, which is great. We've had an opportunity to question them, but the more the better.
Right.
How about what Score 13 saying and Queen Bee?
Right. Dewayla says if she's not allowed to hear what they stand for, it's a no vote for her. Score B13 said maybe he didn't talk about Pastor Kinlock. Maybe he maybe he didn't agree with the way the forum is restricted. And maybe he doesn't like the way people are being shut out from seeing it. And Ms. Sheila said, did they charge the candidates to participate? I have no idea. All I know is, listen, when you have something like that out, first of all, people were invited. Eric got the invitation from somebody else. I didn't get an invitation. You didn't get one, Jim. And
I did not.
Alan, did you get an invitation?
No, I got a press release.
That's problem number one, the whole invitation thing. But the fact that you have to register to ask you who invited you, that to me is crazy. That's wild. That is wild.
We have not seen Whitney Queen Bee on the bit.
Landon Dow says, why hasn't Kinlock been on Black and White? I will say that Adolph has been in communication with him. We expect for him to come on Detroit Black and White. We know that he's been on another podcast, but we expect for him to come on Detroit and Black and White.
I do have a question, and maybe you know it, and maybe you don't know the answer. Is he expect to continue to run the church full time, or is he?
That's what he said. He said he's going to do it.
Is that that would concern me if somebody's the mayor and they're running a whole other entity, which is a big to do. He's got a huge church.
I belong to Triumph. Yeah. It's a huge membership, but I love the message, but I call the microwave service. You in and out in an hour and 15 minutes, okay? And then he has a driver. He goes to these different campuses, and it's a big organization. I'm sure there's people where he can delegate or whatever. But Allan, I will say this, because I'm not going to dismiss what you say, because people have said that. People have asked that question. One, are you still going to be the pastor of the church? And two, are you going to be able to run? How can you be the pastor as well as run the city of Detroit? So, yep. Yes, Santil Jenkins has been on Detroit in Black and White. Actually, she's been on Detroit in Black and White twice. So, yes, she has. Perkins is officially running, and he plans to come on Detroit in Black and White as well. So, we've had almost everybody, with the exception of the two people that people have asked about, which is Todd Perkins and Pastor Kinlock. But everybody else has been on the show.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I have something here. So today, recording face to face with Adolph Mongo with Fred Durhall, and
right.
Fred, it was a very interesting one-on-one conversation with Adolph. He talked about the workforce of the future. He talked about how to alternatives to caskets and cages. He talked about the marriage between schools. Schools and the government need to align for the good of the students. He talked about expanding commercial corridors in Detroit. He also talked a little bit about what he called the Renaissance Center, which I would call the GM headquarters. Right. And he talked about Detroit for everybody. So my point is, if you get an opportunity, it's 30 minutes long with Adolph Mongo and Fred Durhal. I'll be running after this show, I believe.
Yeah, it will be. I watched it. I watched a little bit of it today. Yes, Allan.
I wonder, we've had candidates on and people on the hosts of the show have advocated for the mayor to really take over the schools and stuff like that. But I kind of wonder, we haven't seen a lot from anyone really in terms of out on the campaign trail. I wonder sometimes if they're just coming on and appeasing us by saying that, and whether that is sort of part of their really push in their campaign. I'll be curious to see.
Well, I hear them all talking about it, and I know that Pastor Kinlock, who has not been on Detroit in Black and White, he has talked about it. So I think it's interesting that when Adolph started talking about it, then it seems like everybody jumped on board, even the candidate for governor of the state of Michigan, which would be Mike Duggan. He's talking about education. I read an article a couple of days ago about how he's talking about how important education is and all of that. I just find that very, 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 very interesting.
Well, I think, to me, I'm a big advocate of public schools, and I'm concerned when we offer alternatives where it's all choice and stuff like that, where the incentive to improve your school district becomes less by people saying, all right, if this is a shit school district, I'll go to E-Course or Oak Park or Inks or whatever it is. That it worries me that we have a little bit too much of a laissez-faire thing about charter schools and whatever. I think public schools should be, particularly in a major city, should be a very central issue, and so it should be a concern.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with you, Allan. And I also think, there's people who have different opinions. School of choice really scares me when you talk about giving people vouchers, because you're going to end up with the same problem that we already have. People, to me, when we talk about, we've talked about corporate welfare, those people who can afford to send their kids to school, to private school, now they'll be able to get a voucher. We're paying for their vouchers for them to go to school. And those kids who may not have parents that can transport them to this school, or the school district may not accept them, because that's the other thing. Just because you get a voucher, you say you want to send your kid to a certain school, don't mean that your kid will be able to go to that school. Right. So, it sounds good. And we do have a problem, but for me, that is not the answer.
Right.
Thank you, Ms. Woodson and Landon, who probably missed our conversation. Your fellow Sparty out there said that the mayor can't really do anything about the school, but we've had extensive discussion mostly from Adolph about the city taking over the schools. And I'm with Allan. When you give kids an opportunity to go somewhere else, it's the marginalized students that suffer the most.
Yeah. And I think what happens is suddenly certain school districts get a reputation for being very coveted, for wanting to get in there, and then they become more and more selective. So the rest of the students are stuck with the school district where nobody really cares about it, and they end up with, our country really as a whole, we don't emphasize enough good education, particularly, in the cities where, we have huge population centers, and we don't put enough into it. It's not money, but it's also planning and resourcing and commitment to it,
Listen, I when we talk about education, we talk about early, childhood education. Listen, the bottom line is this system sucks. you have people passing the buck, and you have people going to college. They can't even write an essay. They can't even put sentences together. But guess what? They've taken out these student loans because guess what? Colleges is a business. It's a business. Okay. Education has to be something that you really, really want. They take out these student loans, they get in this debt, and guess what? You can't find a job, or if you get a job or position, you can't hold on to it. Why? Because of your lack of education. And that's something people really don't want to talk about. So I think everybody needs to be vested. We're talking about from college all the way down to preschool. And we're talking about from home all the way into, you talk about the mayor, you talk about you got to talk about the mayor, city council, the governor. Everybody has to be vested. Maybe the mayor can't take over the school as the superintendent, but you know what? You can use that. You can use your office as a bully pulpit and say, listen, this is what you need to do. This, and lean on these people, and tell these people that are elected officials, especially these people that are on the school board, listen, you're not doing your job. Get that joker out of here if they're not living up to their responsibilities. But we're not doing that. We just pass the buck. And that is the problem, as I see it.
Yeah, no, it's certainly a concern, and hopefully it will be a central campaign issue. I don't know what, it's interesting when we talked about months ago when the woman's 2 children, froze to death or whatever the cause of death was in the parking structure. We had a debate whether that would be a big central issue in the campaign. And so I'm not sure what the top 3 central, and part of that's opportunity for a debate on Saturday where maybe we get a better idea, but a lot of people aren't going to see it.
Are you going to watch it virtually?
I may try to watch some of it,
Okay, well, you give us your take. I don't know. Like I said, I know I won't be able to. I have some things that I need to do tomorrow. Besides Detroit and Black and White, I got some other things that I need to do tomorrow. So I know I won't be able to watch it. I was supposed to leave at 9:00.
You were, and you're still here.
Yeah, so I am getting ready to go. You guys can close out the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm going to say peace out. You and Allan can go ahead and.
We're just about done. All we have is final thoughts, I guess, Allan.
Yeah. My biggest concern is I'm concerned about, and I don't know all the details because I've just sort of scanned the story, but a judge in Wisconsin was arrested. I don't know if you guys talked about that before.
We did not. Judge Hannah Dugan,
a
Milwaukee Circuit Court judge.
I think, we've given judges a certain level of discretion, and judges, what's happening is that, from my understanding, is that ICE is showing up to state courts and trying to, take people away. And I don't know if they're doing it before the proceedings or whatever, but if I were a judge, I'd say, this is my courtroom. I can't stop you from doing something outside of this court, but this is my jurisdiction. I'm a boss. And it worries me how, because really in the end right now, the last thing that's really holding back the Trump administration about doing anything is the judiciary. We just had a guy I worked with at the Washington Post. He's the head of Voice of America, and they shut it down. And he put on Facebook this morning and said, Judge Royce Lambert, a U.S. District Court judge out of Washington, who's a Reagan appointee, had said the White House can't shut down agencies that were funded by Congress. Congress has to do that. And so I think it's 1,300 workers are going to be returned to work. I think people mix up the fact. It's like, do we want to cut costs? Yes. Do we want to get rid of immigrants who are committing crimes? Yes. But we also have a constitution, and we also have due process. And I think that's all that people, it's like when we say, hey, we want to get rid of crime, that doesn't mean that they can go out and just start shooting criminals or people they suspect might be criminals. We have a justice system, and there's a reason for having a civilization. And the Constitution, countries around the world have come. We've sent lawyers from our Justice Department. I know somebody who went from the U.S. Attorney's Office here who went to Ukraine and was there for several years trying to revamp their justice system and stuff because, you know, I mean, you want to have a civil society, you need laws. I mean, it's just the way it is. So it worries me when they start going after the judges like that. You know, like I say, the judge, it's their courtroom, it's their courthouse. You know, they can't prevent ICE. A state judge can't prevent ICE from snatching somebody, but they can't do it at the courthouse.
There's more to the story, and I think we should talk about it maybe a little more tomorrow.
Yeah,
but apparently they notified the judge, and she went off. They told her that we would wait until after the proceeding, and he was facing 3 domestic violence charges, and additionally, he was deported in 2013. He came back, but you know, it's a bad look all the way around.
Yeah,
but maybe we'll talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. I just want to say thanks to everybody that tuned in and spent time with Debbie tonight. She's a great lady. And having said that, I know there's so many people out there that are tuning in that we communicate with. Queen Bee, who makes a huge contribution to the community, and Marlon, and there's True Sensation, people that I know what they do, and perhaps some of our colleagues out there consider coming on the show one day. So that's all I really have. Thanks again.
Everybody will see everybody tomorrow.